Welcome to Turning Talk Tuesday. I'm Liz Pearson. I love Heartwood on Instagram, and also in real life that is my business. I'm a woodturner, and I also run a sort of wood turning school, Love Heart Wood Turning School. I've done 3 of these live chats now. The first one I think I did with Richard Finlay, and then I did a nice chat with my friend Jubal Prevet, and then I've also done a chat with Anthony Lawton, also known as Gorilla Bowls. That's what first attracted me to this turner. So I think we can say that her work is kind of on the incredible side, really. Her handle on Instagram is Turning Wilde, and her name is Lou. Is a wood turner and a wood carver and an artist as well.
We're here.
You're here. Hello. I was just saying, are you based in Ireland? Is that where you are?
I am, yes. We moved over to Ireland. We were based in Leicester before. We moved over to Ireland a couple of years ago.
Your background is in art or in sculpture, or was it wood turning first? Or
no, so I'm a cellist.
Wow.
I spent a long time carrying a big piece of wood around in a box, and playing it every now and again. I did a couple of years studies in photography, and then I earned a living as a photographer for about 8 years. Actually, I was involved. I'd been asked to go and photograph an event, a kind of countryside event, just go around and take some pictures of what was happening. And I came across the Tiny Turner, who was, from what I remember, she turned some goblets, and she was kind of chip carving them or carving them in some fashion. And I was mesmerised by it. I thought, I need to have a go at that. Yeah. So I managed to find a local carving club. And that's really where I kind of got a little bit of tuition about carving and just using tools. And you know, when you're carving, you've got to learn about grain and orientation and all that kind of stuff. So that's very much, you know, I used to make these little things, you know, just a little piece of wood, and you know,
so you were just
that's where I
whittling, just whittling things.
Yeah, absolutely. It was all knife work, very few chisels, and I would just sit and I would follow a pattern. You know, I'd you know, just work my way through it, just follow instructions. Really, that's all I was doing. Yeah. And that was just before COVID. COVID came, of course, and you know, you run out of enthusiasm to do whittling, you know, after many months. And of course, when you're on YouTube looking at whittling stuff, you know, you're bombarded by all sorts of stuff, and that's when the wood turning stuff came up. And again, I was fascinated by it, and I was lucky enough to speak to one of the guys who I did the carving with, and he said, well, I've got a lathe, come and have a go. Well, I was terrified. This thing turning around and putting a chisel in, and oh my goodness. But I was intrigued enough to think, if I'm going to invest in a lathe, I need to go and have a couple of lessons. And I managed, in between lockdown, I managed to go up to Turner's Retreat and have a couple of days with Mick Hanbury. And whilst I was there, I came across an advert on Facebook that was advertising this guy was selling his lathe. Well, he wasn't just selling his lathe, he was selling his whole shop. He had sharpening systems, he had all the tools, he had wood, he had the bench, he'd made the bench for the lathe to sit on, everything. Now, the only problem was I was living in a little terraced house in the centre of Leicester with no garden, no outhouse. Yeah. So I set up in the back bedroom.
Oh my God.
Lay a bit of plastic over the nice new carpet. Well, I used to keep the door shut, and I bought the Axminster big extractor. It was great. There was, of course, you know, the trail of sawdust down to the kettle. Yeah. But, you know, that's just how life rocks, isn't it? So one of the main things that we looked for in a house was to have an outbuilding that I could use. Yeah. So I'm just so fortunate that we have that now. And yes, so I teach in my workshop. I have 2 lathes. And I'm very, very keen to kind of promote women in turning. It was one of the things that I got involved with quite quickly. during COVID. They were a massive support, you know, the Women in Turning group. And
Yes.
from that, you know, I got in tow with the American Association, and I've been over to a couple of the symposiums. Just an incredible experience. And what's so lovely, I think, really, when I think about the wood turning, is just the community.
Yeah.
It's just fabulous. The support and the camaraderie is just, I would have never have believed, you know, within something like this that, you know, it would be there, but it's just tremendous.
I saw.
Wonderful.
I scrolled back down your feed and saw that you'd been over there, and saw you with photos, photos of you with people.
Yeah,
And what's so nice is Barbara Dill has befriended me on Instagram now. I think because you met her, didn't you?
yes.
And she's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm really thrilled that I kind of saw that she commented on one of my posts, and then I still went, "Oh wow, it's Barbara Dill."
So Barbara was a massive inspiration to me very quickly. So when I started wood turning, the things that really kind of float my boat are the things that make you think, but how did you do that? How was that made? How can you possibly do that on a lathe? So I got my lathe, I think it was on something like the 7th of November. And as a Christmas present, I asked for Barbara Dill's book. And of course, it came, I opened the book. I loved the photographs, but trying to get my head around what on earth was going on.
That's my issue when I look at your stuff, because I don't have a lot of experience of off-center turning, or like what you're doing with your little characters is like doing parts and then assembling them.
Yeah.
And that does fascinate. Same with you, it fascinates me, but I don't know how you do it. But I mean, everybody's done off-center turning where you do a wobbly candlestick, which doesn't look all that great. But what I loved your bowl with those, you know, bowl within bowl within bowl, and all the little angles are offset, and it's like that to me has a purpose and an expression to the offsetness of it. It's like it looks, it's interesting, like you say, and you think, I don't know how you did that.
Yeah.
But I like the outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you looked at Stephen Hogbin's work?
No. So, I'm gonna write that down.
He was a furniture maker, and he was very much, he would turn a shape, he would turn a bowl, and then he would cut it in half and then reassemble it by joining the rims together, so you create a different shape.
Okay, yeah.
And so that kind of concept creates, you've turned something on a lathe, you've cut it, you've reassembled it, and that just kind of it explains a lot. And I was talking to Betty Scarpino, and she very much talks about make something, cut it up, and reassemble it. So she was telling me that she did a demonstration one night, and she turned this beautiful bowl, and then she said, I want to tell me how many people, I'm proposing that I'm going to cut this into pieces. Show me your hand if you want me to do that. And no one wanted. She said, well, I'm going to do it. And she said she got someone to come and help her, and said, here, take this away, take this over to that bandsaw, cut it into 7 pieces, and bring it back. And they were like, oh,
yeah. No.
But she constructed this beautiful sculpture out of it.
But it is, isn't it? It's thinking of it as not the end product, but the beginning of something more interesting.
Yeah.
And thinking about it sculpturally, I suppose, rather than just as a sort of lathe or like a tradesperson, but thinking of it as a raw material.
Yes.
But just being much more creative. And I find that fascinating. I'm partly attracted, you know, you can never do everything you're interested in, but I'm attracted to green wood turning because of the dynamic nature of it, the fact that it changes, and you've got the possibility of change before, you've got the possibility of change, obviously changing the form, but then after, you've got the possibility of what it's going to become.
Yes.
And it's the same with, you know, if you take a piece and then you actually think, oh, I can change this now. I can, like you say, cut it up or add another piece or put it inside something else. So, but how do you do your, I mean, I get your little creatures and your fish. I mean, you're using paper joints on the fish, are you?
I did, yes. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So the idea of the lost wood, the slice of wood in the middle that is then going to come out, and paper joints, glue it all together, and then when you turn it, you can split it and remove that centre bit.
Yeah.
And it's the idea of creating an oval rather than round.
Yeah.
So yeah, that you can do that with all sorts of things. I'm sure they call it lost wood.
I might have to look that process up because I've got a commission to do which somebody wants oval, and I'm like, oh hello, how am I going to do that then? But it's only when somebody asks you or you kind of challenge yourself that you think, yeah, how am I going to do that? So
Yeah.
so you've borrowed processes from Betty
I've picked up.
and Barbara Dill and
Yes.
Stephen Hogbin.
Yes, absolutely.
Kind of magpie.
Yes, absolutely. So, of course, I started turning during COVID. I didn't have anyone to say, oh, don't do that multi-axis stuff, it's dangerous.
That's
So
true.
I think maybe the third or fourth thing I ever made was a three-sided little box. I think the first box I ever made was three-sided because I looked at it and I thought, I'm going to have a go. And that's basically...
Do you work from, I want to make this thing, or do you just go, I mean, my problem with off-center is I just move it over a bit and I just see what it's going to turn out at, but I can't plan it. Do you need to have more experience to plan it?
Well, there's different processes. If you follow Barbara's ideas, Barbara very much talks about having created a shape, and then when she was still kind of thinking about the off-center stuff, she would go back and think, well, how did I do that? This is really nice. I've put a piece of wood on the lathe, I've put 4 pieces of wood, because that's something else that she does very much, 4 pieces together, turn them and then split them. Yeah. And so she said, trying to go back then and work out how she'd managed to get those shapes would take ages, and until she had this systematic way of approaching something.
Yeah.
And if you can plan it and you know how shifting the center is going to affect the other side of the wood, then absolutely. If you've ever seen Derek Weidman work, oh my goodness, he creates the most incredible animal faces and animal heads and all sorts of things he does. But we were lucky to have him at the Irish Symposium back in October here in Ireland, and just seeing him do some of those things, and he just has a mind that is so intuitive as to, I've got this shape, if I move it here, and he's got all the center points within the piece, and he makes he uses them as part of the decorations. Then he's not trying to hide the marks that you get.
Okay.
And he kind of factors, or sometimes he'll carve them away.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think for someone like Derek, it's very much, he's tried many things. He's spent many hours. If I do this, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to have a certain mind to be able to imagine, how it's going to affect things. But yeah, his work is well worth a look. It's just tremendous.
Yeah, I will. I'll definitely. I've got names. I'm writing things down. I knew Barbara. I didn't know the other 2, so I will definitely look at them.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, but you've had a relatively short. It's only 2025 now, so you've had a huge learning curve.
I have, yeah.
From taking it up in, say, what was it, just before lockdown, or
no? It was like the first year of lockdown.
Yeah, so you've barely, like 4 years? Or...
4 years I've been turning,
yeah. See, I feel like I'm very slow. It's like I've been doing it 11 years now and I haven't really progressed. I don't think I'm challenging myself enough.
Right.
Well, I
was very much, when I did my photography course, we were very much encouraged to look at other people's work. And if you liked it, then you had to try and write down why you liked it. If you didn't like it, write down why you didn't like it. You had to kind of come up with a series for each project we did. So that was very much instilled into me. So I've spent a lot of time looking at other people's work. And if I see something that I like, I'll think, how could how do you do that? And then I'll just go away and have a go. So if you look through my work, you'll see all sorts of influences going through.
There's definitely phases. Yeah, there's phases. I was scrolling back going, oh, this is different. Oh no, now we're on to something else. Oh, now this is, yeah. But that's so good though.
That for me was just, it was all learning. Yeah. And I'm only kind of now coming into a place where I feel I'm kind of ready to, you know, kind of have my own voice, so to speak.
But that's like a musician though, isn't it? Because you, first of all, you copy everybody you like, or you know, and then you can't start from nothing. You have to, like you say, you have to emulate and try and copy other people, and then you get your own thing. So what is your direction?
What is it now? Well, because I like carving wood as well. I like creating kind of these kind of shapes. These,
that's just, I love the balls with the little mouths that you did.
Oh yeah,
those spheres with the little lips. They were just exquisite. Those little lips were so they were so they were just so expressive.
So again, and I like that, because if you're feeling sad, then you turn it the upside down, and it's very much a sad face.
Yeah,
feeling happy to the other way. But that was very much. I think it was Luc Deroux who created a shape that was kind of that his idea, but his mouth shapes at the side of it were very different, and then he took it down a different route and expanded it in a different way. But that's where that came from. That was and it's great. But you know, I think quite often we get quite hung up about, I'm a woodturner, so I need to woodturn. And again, going right back, in my first year of turning, I was very much, I need to make, you know, people would say, but how did you do that? Well, I did it this and I did that, and then and then.
But if you carved, was that cheating? Or,
well,
you know,
absolutely. I felt a little bit kind of, am I allowed to do this? And one of the things I'd come across were some of the Japanese wooden mugs. And they're very much, they turn the inside and then they shape the outside, and then they sand it into shape. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's how you do it. So I had a go. And I thought, oh, I like this. So when you're talking about tools, I don't want to jump the gun here, but
please, anything, you know, we're always ready for a tool, aren't we?
One of the things I created to start with was this. Now it's a big hefty lump. And it's got, the grit on there is probably 80 grit. And that, in conjunction with this, the rubber that cleans it off, you come across one of these?
No, what is that? What's that made from? That polyurethane foam, or?
It's rubber.
It's actual rubber.
It's actual rubber. And it's used, when that's spinning, it used to clean the sawdust, to clear the sandpaper. So it elongates the life of it. So when you put something on there, I mean, that's a sticky back one. I didn't realise you could buy those. I just used to glue another layer on. But things like that, and then of course, you know, your small, just kind of ones as well. So it, you know, depends what size you've got. But I use those all the time to help shape if I need to do anything like that. So the first thing I kind of realised I could do that with was a mug. And I loved making mugs. I made loads of mugs, loved them, people loved them. And then I felt like, crikey, I need to move on from here now. I need to do something.
Done mugs,
yeah, I've done mugs.
Done mugs.
But I still enjoy doing them. And I came across a guy just before Christmas who'd said, well, if you're making some more mugs, I'd be interested. I'm interested, put them in my shop. And so I kind of revisited that, and you know, we have different wood here, and you know, I find it's a process that I like doing. You know, it's a little bit of turning. And then of course, one of the other things that I really enjoyed last year was I went down to the London School of Furniture and to do it wasn't a steam bending course, it was a wood bending course. So we looked at all the different avenues of bending wood, and then I started making these kind of things.
I love
So,
I love that. It's so sculptural.
so
Yes,
you know,
beautiful.
totally useless because there's a pretty big hole going on in here.
It's not about,
No,
yeah, you would never use that though with that handle, would you?
no. And so the lid was a happy accident, and I just love that kind of stuff, and it's a nice piece of wood as well. So, but the mugs for me were very much a turning point for me, because I realised, actually, do you know what? It's all right to carve stuff as well, to turn it and carve, and there, it just opens up a whole
That's what it does,
new
yeah.
world.
I don't know anything about carving, and I would really like, I'm at the point where I'm like, God, I'd really like to put handles on things. And yeah, I really would like to do extra details into things. And I'm going to I'm going to go down the avenue of more carving and more green woodworking. So I'd like to learn how to use a froe.
Okay.
I'd like to cleft and split, wood and that kind of thing, because I've been fascinated with cookses, those little Scandinavian mug type things, and I've seen so many of those being made, and I thought, yeah, I would like to be able to take the wood from the round and split it traditionally, and create spindles in a traditional way. As I was talking to a green woodworking guy who came to our club, and he was fascinating. So I'm sort of like, right, that's my birthday present. I'm going off for a green woodworking course with this guy, Charles Ash. And he does sort of green stick-built furniture, which is fascinating to me, because it's using the natural properties of the wood and the transition to create strength in the structure, and just use its properties in a good way. And it's so, I like economy. So I like, if you can get 2 for 1 with something, if you can use it will make a joint, but you don't need any glue. I'm like, oh, that's even better. Well, thank you very much. It was really lovely to meet you, and I'm sure I'll keep chit-chatting on the messenger.
Yeah, but you too, Liz. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much to everyone who joined us. I will cut you off now if I can find the off button. But
all right, thanks.
Bye. Bye-bye.